Kimeumana nchini Kenya as Rigathi Gachagua calls for Maandamano in Nairobi. Welcome to Kenya Lens Media, and here is where you get news updates as they break. And kindly, if you are new here, help us grow this channel by subscribing. Now, Kenya's political tensions are set to intensify after Democracy for Citizens Party DCP leader Rigathi Gachagua announced the plans for a large-scale protest in Nairobi, targeting more than 100,000 demonstrators. Speaking at a political rally on Monday, Gachagua urged supporters to turn out in large numbers on Friday, February 20th, warning that the march could bring parts of the capital to a standstill. The planned demonstration is expected to culminate in March to the office of the Inspector General Douglas Kanja, marking a significant escalation in the opposition's campaign of alleged police brutality. The move comes after opposition leaders and their attempt to hold a follow-up meeting with the police chief collapsed on Monday, a deepening mistrust between political actors and security agencies. Analysts say the planned protest could become a major test to both opposition unity and the government's approach to the crowd control following recent deadly confrontations. At the heart of the planned march is the opposition's demand for accountability over recent incidents involving police use of force, and leaders backing the protest have vowed to maintain pressure until authorities address what they describe as a pattern of excessive policing during political events. The announcement follows the controversial disruption of opposition rally in Kitengela, where police deployed tear gas and, according to witnesses and activists, live ammunition were used. The incident left at least one civilian dead and several others injured, triggering nationwide debate. Opposition figures argue that a Nairobi march is intended to force institutional accountability rather than merely stage a political show of strength. However, security analysts caution that large urban demonstrations often carry the risk of confrontation, especially when relations between protesters and police are already strained. By directing supporters to march to the office of the Inspector General Kanja, Gachagua's call places the national police leadership directly at the center of the political dispute. The Inspector General's office is constitutionally mandated to oversee operational command of National Police Service, making it symbolic focal point for demands related to law enforcement and conduct. Opposition leaders say their planned engagement with the Kanja failed to materialize earlier this week, leaving them with what they describe as limited options outside public mobilization. Political observers know that protesters and protests aimed at senior security officials often carry heightened sensitivity because they test the balance between constitutional protest rights and public order concerns. In his remarks, Gachagua warned that the planned demonstration could effectively paralyze sections of Nairobi if turnout meets the projected numbers. Such warnings appear designed both to mobilize supporters and to signal the seriousness of opposition grievances. Nairobi, as Kenya's political and economic hub, has historically been the stage of high-impact demonstrations capable of disrupting transport, commerce, and even government operations. Urban security planners typically prepare extensively to protest of this scale, deploying the anti-riot units and traffic diversions, where the authorities will permit the march to proceed without restriction remains unclear. The National Police Service had not publicly detailed its security plan on the time of reporting. Adding an international dimension to the dispute, Kalonzo Musyoka, leader of the Wiper Democratic Movement, warned that the opposition could escalate alleged human rights concerns beyond Kenya's borders. Speaking alongside other opposition figures, Kalonzo referenced the possibility of engaging International Criminal Court in The Hague if domestic accountability mechanisms fail. The reference to the ICC carries significant political weight in Kenya, where past post-election violence cases placed the country under intense international scrutiny. Analysts say that threat is likely intended to increase pressure on domestic institutions to act decisively. However, legal experts caution that ICC involvement typically requires a high evidentiary threshold and is generally considered a last resort after national remedies are exhausted. The Nairobi protest call reflects growing coordination among opposition leaders who appear increasingly aligned around the police accountability issue. In recent weeks, political messaging from various opposition camps has converged around themes of civil liberties, crowd control conduct, and also the right to peacefully assembly. And this convergence suggests a strategic effort to build a unified narrative capable of mobilizing public support across party lines. For Gachagua, the planned demonstration also represents an opportunity to consolidate his position within the broader opposition landscape, where multiple figures are seeking to shape the movement's direction ahead of the future electoral contests. The planned march presents a delicate test for the government and security agencies. Authorities must balance the constitutional right to peaceful protest with the responsibility to maintain public order in a densely populated capital. Past experience in Kenya shows that heavy-handed responses to demonstrations can quickly inflame tensions, while insufficient preparation can lead to property damage or public safety risks. Security experts say that several factors will determine how events unfold on the February 20th, and any miscalculation on either side could rapidly escalate the situation. Kenya has a long history of politically driven street demonstrations, particularly during periods of heightened opposition activity, from pro-democracy protests in the 1990s to more recent election-related marches. Public mobilization has remained a central feature of the country's political expression. However, these demonstrations have at times turned violent, often following confrontations between protesters and security forces. Human rights organizations have repeatedly called for improved crowd management training and stricter adherence to use of force guidelines. The current dispute emerges against this historical backdrop, where public demonstrations can serve both a democratic pressure tools and potential flashpoints. Attention is now focused on whether dialogue channels between opposition leaders and security authorities will open before the planned march, and key developments are likely to shape the situation include whether the police formally approve the protest route and whether opposition leaders issue detailed crowd management plans. Political analysts say that early de-escalation measure could reduce the risk of confrontation, but the current rhetoric suggests suggestions and tensions may remain high. The planned Nairobi demonstration is more than a routine political rally. It represents a critical moment in Kenya's ongoing debate over policing, civil liberties, and political competition. If the protest proceeds peacefully and authorities respond with restraint, it could reinforce Kenya's democratic credentials and rebuild some public trust. And if, however, the march ends in confrontation or further casualties, the political fallout could deepen polarization and erode confidence in state institutions. For the opposition, the event is a test of its ability to mobilize mass support around governance concerns rather than purely electoral ambitions for the government. It is a measure of whether security agencies can manage dissent within constitutional limits. As February 20th approaches, Nairobi stands at a sensitive political crossroads, and the handling of this demonstration by both protest organizers and the state authorities may shape the tone of Kenya's political environment in the months ahead. That's all for today from Kenya Lens Media. Kindly, if you're new here, consider subscribing as a way of supporting us and also helping us grow this channel.